Walt Clyde Frazier played the best basketball game you haven't heard about. Now, I know I'm making an assumption about what you know about basketball with that statement, and that might not totally be fair. If you're watching this, there's a decent chance you're subscribed to me, which makes you smart and cool. If you happen to be a Knicks fan, you probably know more than most about our subject today and where I might be going with it. But the rest of you rubes are still in the dark. Simple-minded fools. And I take pity on you. You know, I was dumb once too. Not as dumb as you, obviously, but still. I've been there. Not knowing things. So take my hand, dear viewer, and allow me to deliver you unto enlightenment. You probably know Clyde Frazier best as the color commentator for the New York Knicks. You probably know him for his Clydeisms, his eclectic diction, his articulation and inclination toward rhyme.
Penetrates, creates, rising on peculiar. Ain't that peculiar?
You are probably also aware that he is one of the most fashion-focused broadcasters in the profession, an aspect that has even spawned a website dedicated to cataloging and rating his fits before every Knick game, going all the way back to 2013. Most people think he's great, a true authentic, a genuine article. Some people, like a stupid Philly sports fan friend of mine, thinks that he talks like Dr. Seuss and dresses like a cartoon character. Such is the duality of man. You probably know too, Clyde Frazier's reputation as a Knicks legend, the floor general for both of the Knicks championship squads of the 1970s. And thus, our lesson begins in earnest. My dumb Philly friend was right about one thing. Clyde Frazier is, and has always been, a character. Now, before we even get into the ball he played, you gotta know one thing. He was fucking cool. That was literally the title of this section in my outline. He was fucking cool. He has always been a fashion-forward individual. He exuded the style of his era. Mink coats, fedoras, suede, the absolute chops this guy rocked. He was the definition of old school cool. And he was like that pretty much when he came into the league. One day in 1967, his rookie year, Frazier came to the Knicks facilities in one of his signature get-ups. A team trainer named Danny Wellen beheld the sight and remarked that Frazier looked like Warren Beatty's character in the new film, Bonnie and Clyde. The name stuck. Okay, so he's the point guard of the New York Knicks, was an absolute trendsetter, and was nicknamed for a bank robber. Can this guy get any cooler? Yeah. He drove a silver Cloud 3 Rolls-Royce painted antelope with burgundy hood and sides sitting atop white wall tires. Even still, he would often ride the subway to games and around town just to soak up the energy of the city. He's the first NBA player to ever get a signature shoe, the Puma Clydes. Of course, they were suede, and of course, he is reported to have never played in the same color variation twice. The bedspread in his Manhattan penthouse was white mink, and the wall and ceilings of his bedroom were mirrored. That's how cool he was. And in case I have to spell it out for you, Clyde Frazier fucked. He was living the lifestyle of famous bachelor living in New York City in the 70s. Like Dominique Wilkins, Clyde is one of the NBA's all-time underrated philanderers. If you take anything away from this video, I want it to be that Clyde played the best Game 7 in a finals ever, which we're getting to, and that he fucked. And while we're on it, I had this thought, and now you have to have it too. How often and how thoroughly do you think they cleaned those mirrors? My guess? Not enough. He was the Joe Namath of the NBA, a New York City icon. But Frazier was like good. Like really good. Just how good, you may ask? He was the starting point guard for 2 NBA champion Knicks teams, 1 runner-up, should have won Finals MVP in 1973, was a 7-time All-Star, the All-Star Game MVP in 1975, made 4 first and 2 second All-NBA teams, and made 7 consecutive All-Defensive first teams. He retired as the Knicks' all-time leader in points, games, minutes, and assists, the last of which is a record he still holds nearly 50 years later. For some context on those numbers, he had the same number of All-Star appearances as Scottie Pippen, more first-team All-NBA selections than Allen Iverson, and the same number of all-defensive teams as Dennis Rodman and Chris Paul. In fact, the only guard in NBA history to make first-team all-defense in more consecutive years is Gary Payton. That is the historical company that Walt Frazier keeps. Clyde Frazier has a very solid case as the best guard of the 1970s. His reputation was first and foremost as the best defensive guard of his era, a reputation that was warranted. His hands were once described as faster than a lizard's tongue, and he was famous for his pickpocket abilities and steals, a skill set that fit his bank robber nickname to a T. His approach to defense seemed Dion-esque. Make the opponent think they have space, lure them into a false sense of security, maybe even take it easy on them in the first half, then, at the most critical time, jump the lane, pick their pocket, turn the tide. He was a 6'4", lean, keen basketball machine who modeled his game after the Big O and nailed the impression like he was Jay Farrow as Stephen A.
Mario Chalmers!
He commanded the high post, rebounded better than any other player of his size, knocked down pull-ups, and surveyed the court like a bird of prey. As his big man teammate Willis Reed once famously said, "It's Clyde's ball. He just lets us play with it every once in a while." And yeah, that's a cute, endearing, tongue-in-cheek thing between two all-time teammates. But it does serve to illustrate Frazier's importance as the conductor of one of the best passing teams ever. Now don't go anywhere, but I'm about to try to explain the importance of a basketball team from the 1970s. If you've been around the channel before, you know that this kind of thing happens from time to time, and that I can usually get us through it. If you're new here, I don't know how you made it this far, if I'm honest, man. I mean, didn't I call you stupid at the beginning of the video? I'm sorry about that, man. I was just saying shit that I didn't mean. Anyway, the 1970s Knicks are special and important. Get ready to learn history, buddy. Whoa, hold on a minute, class. That's the bell. You know what that means. It's time for today's sponsored segment. Brought to you by today's sponsor, Factor. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your door. All there is to do is heat them up. I mean, how much more convenient could it get? Factor's cheaper and tastes way better than takeout, with chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals ready in just 2 minutes. They were kind enough to send me a box with a variety of meals. I decided to try out the Tex-Mex bowl with cauliflower rice, and guess what? It was spectacular. And the best part? No prep, no cooking, no big cleanup. To get started, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code Clayton50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code Clayton50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Now, back to the history lesson. The New York Knicks of the 1970s were immortalized, not just because they were champions from the largest city in America, but because they played basketball the way it was supposed to be played, and in a way that would become the model for, really, the best way to play. Sure, the Celtics won the most, and not to put down the greatest dynasty the sport has ever seen, but the Knicks were fun to watch. This video isn't necessarily about those Knicks teams, and there are a ton of really good books and docs about them, but they had that connective fiber, that transformative spiritual connection that elevates a championship team into mythology. It was really Willis Reed's team, and he's an integral part of our story. But Frazier ran the show, and the team featured a cast of characters, like Bill Bradley, Dave DeBusschere, Dick Barnett, and later Jerry Lucas, Earl the Pearl Monroe, and a fella named Phil Jackson. Their head coach, Red Holzman, was a brilliant coach and character in his own right, who had 3 basketball tenets according to Bradley. Hit the open man, help out on defense, and the hotel bar belonged to Red. He was a native New Yorker, enjoyed his scotch, connected with his players in an atypical way, treated them like grown-ups, and was named one of the top 10 coaches in NBA history by the league itself in 1996. And I know what you're thinking. Jesus Christ, Clayton, really? Haven't you said all this before? You're gonna feed us more of that unselfish, come together, Celtics, Spurs, Pistons, play the right way crap? Where do you get off? And listen, I know, I agree with you. It's not new. You know who else agrees with you though? Larry Brown. Quote, "I really did coin the phrase, play the right way. And aside from Russell's teams, you look at a team that played the right way, it was the Knicks from 70 to 73. They all had a role. They all sacrificed for one another, and they were just remarkable. Free-flowing, hive-minded passing, long-range shooting, space creation, collaborative, hard-nosed defense. The best kind of basketball. Every giant stands on the shoulders of other giants. The Warriors, the Spurs, the Lakers, the Celtics, they all share their DNA with the 70s Knicks. That's what makes the Knicks special. They played the beautiful game, all the way back then, a decade before a three-point line was ever painted onto an NBA floor. And New York loved them for it. They felt a connection with the team and really felt like they could affect the game. They even coined the defense chants that have become ubiquitous to the sport. It's been said a million times, in a million ways, but New York is a basketball city. Somewhere within the cracks in the asphalt and the concrete lives a part of the spirit of basketball. And it gets summoned up through the feet and breathed into the lungs of every kid shooting a flat ball into a rim without a net, every teenager perfecting their hook shot, every college kid exploring their imagination in midair, even and especially the players who call Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena in the world, the Mecca of basketball, home. And Walt Clyde Frazier felt it. He was in tune with that spirit. Of all the things and skills I've read or heard or seen from Clyde, it was his supernatural feel for the moment that stands out. It's the trait that all of the great clutch players in history have in common. They know when it is the moment, can feel what it is they need to do, and have the balls to do it. He did it all the time. When the moment called out to Clyde, he answered. Never more loudly than on May 8th, 1970, Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Whew, okay, I'm gonna let a little air out of the balloon here. That was a lot, right? Like, it kind of felt like a lot. I mean, I meant it, and I'm not gonna apologize for it, but let's cool off for a second, because honestly, the game in question was a bit of an ass kicking. Did you know that Clyde is celibate now and drives a Nissan Pathfinder? I'm just kidding about the celibate part, dude. He's Clyde Frazier. He does drive a Pathfinder, though. Okay, let's get where we're going. As I'm sure Clyde once said, enough yapping, time for some clapping. 1970 NBA Finals. Lakers versus Knicks. A championship contest between two somewhat tortured franchises at the time. The Lakers hadn't won it all since they were in Minnesota, and the Knicks, one of the original BAA teams from the 40s, had still never won a title. The Lakers were big time. They were led by a trio of Wilt Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, and Jerry West. 3 all-time all-timers. But the Knicks were the team. They'd started the season 23-1, a record for the best start until the 2016 Warriors. New York had won a then-record 18 games in a row and finished the season with a league-best 60-22 record. Frazier and Reed were both first-team All-League and first-team All-Defensive picks, with Reed capturing All-Star MVP and League MVP honors to boot. The series lived up to the billing and then some. The teams traded tight games, going back and forth through the first 4 contests, and Reed was crushing it. He was averaging 32 points and 15 rebounds a game on top of awesome defense against Wilt Chamberlain. But wait. Oh no. You hear that dramatic pause in the music? That's right. Tragedy. Reed got hurt in the first quarter of Game 5. He tore a muscle in his leg, likely his right tensor fascia, one of the muscles that helps connect the thigh to the hip. He missed the rest of the game, but Frazier and company eked out a narrow win. In Game 6, without Reed, in Los Angeles, the Knicks got murdered. a 22-point loss. Chamberlain threw up 45 points and 27 rebounds. Which brings us back to May 8th, 1970. Game 7, New York City. The Knicks come out and start warming up. No Reed. He's still in the locker room, receiving an injection of painkillers into his leg. Mere minutes before the game is set to tip off, Willis emerges from the tunnel to thunderous applause in an iconic moment of New York basketball lore.
Here comes Willis, and the crowd is going wild.
Reed doesn't even attempt to win the tip-off against Chamberlain, immediately running back on defense. Within moments, he is moving with a clear limp. And yet, he hits the Knicks' first 2 shots of the game, sending the rabid New York fans into hysteria. Reed plays 27 minutes in the game, secures 3 rebounds, plays truly great defense against Chamberlain, and finishes with just those 4 points. The Knicks win their first championship in franchise history, and Game 7 is forever remembered as the Willis-Reed game. I bet you have a lot of questions. You're probably thinking, hey Clayton, what the fuck? I thought this video was about Clyde Frazier and how he played this awesome game. And didn't you say it was the best Game 7 performance ever in the finals? And this game is the Willis-Reed game? You lied, Clayton Crowley. You're a liar. I get it. You're right to be upset. But I didn't lie. What I just told you was the 100% God's honest truth. Those things did happen. The Knicks did win. Willis-Reed was an absolute stud who played through a debilitating injury, and the game is remembered for that. That's all true, and it's the way the story is pretty universally told. But that's the thing. History has forgotten what Walt Frazier did after Willis-Reed hit those first 2 shots. Reed staggered the Lakers not just by coming out of the tunnel, but by playing the game and working the crowd into a frenzy. And Clyde Frazier, as he always would, felt the moment and knew what to do. He knocked the Lakers out cold in the first quarter. The Knicks effectively won the game by halftime. He was a man possessed by that moment, the spirit of his teammates, the arena, the fans, and the city. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. Clyde finished the game with 36 points, 7 rebounds, 5 steals, and 19 assists. He shot 12 of 17 from the floor and a perfect 12 of 12 from the line. In that first quarter, he registered 15, 4, and 4. He did not miss a shot. Not from the floor, not from the line. The Knicks put the game out of reach and never gave back an inch. The numbers he put up, the way he controlled the game, practically without the team captain and league MVP against a star-studded roster, put it up against all the best performances on the same stage. Heinsohn in 57, Worthy in 88, LeBron in 13, and I'll take Frazier's over all of them. But honestly, I don't really care to convince you that his is the best. I really just want you to know about it, because it's crazy to me that this kind of shit is the shit that gets lost to history. The fact that the 70s Knicks were special, the absolute dog that Willis-Reed was, and the defining moment in Clyde Frazier's career. I wish I knew why certain things get remembered and other things don't. I'd make a lot more money. But when Jalen Brunson sets a scoring record in the first round and people start calling it the best playoff game ever by a New York Knick, I can't help but make a mental note to make a video like this. I know it's easy to think that the Knicks started with Carmelo Anthony. They didn't. There was Patrick Ewing, and before that there was Bernard King. And before that there was Willis-Reed and Walt Clyde Frazier, the player who ushered in the golden era of Knicks basketball with the greatest game in Knicks history. We might have forgotten about it. Clyde hasn't. I felt I could do anything in front of the roar of the crowd that night. I always tried to hit the open man when I played, but that night, I was the open man. I think of that team every day.